Here.
That sounds great.
All right.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here today. And I know this was booked for 90 minutes, but we actually have planned for it to be right about an hour. But if anybody wants to stay and ask questions, we can stay until about 1:15. So the presentation is about 20 minutes, and then we should be able to spend the rest of the time actually working in Claude together and answering questions. So, my name is Kristen Graham Brown, and hopefully, you know you're signed up for Fueling AI Marketing with Brand Guidelines. And I have with me today Emma Dorge. She's our managing director, and she's going to be moderating through the comments. So, if you have questions throughout, please drop that in the chat section and we'll read those out. So, at any time, Emma will be able to stop me and we can answer those questions. So we call ourselves a culture-driven branding agency. We're Hoot Design Company, and our philosophy is that change and brand really comes from the inside out. And without internal and external alignment, we will never be able to achieve true scale and success. So brand is so much more than your logo or your tagline. It's really how you behave, and it's the scaffolding for building a truly legacy brand is the way that we behave and act is worth so much more than just what we look and sound like. So we think that's a big missed opportunity for people is leveraging brand in that way. And the bedrock of our process is this right here, that brand is the being and marketing is the doing. And a lot of people, they love to run down the road of the doing. We want to build the website, launch the campaign, but we don't hold space and take time to actually figure out who we are, who we're for, and why they should care. And I can promise you that if you're willing to do this, if you're willing to define your being, AI can help you with the doing in a completely unprecedented way. So our process was really formulated to train humans. Since we've been around for about 15 years, and we've been doing this process for about the last 5. But it's been completely transformed now through the integration of AI, both for ourselves and for our clients. And I think that maybe the reason that we're really good at this is just we have a lot of right-brained people, right? We're not very linear thinkers. I had imaginary friends growing up, so this is not that big of a leap for me to use Claude like he's a human or it is a human. So we don't study prompts. We're not No one's a computer scientist here. We just are really good at moving fast and playing and figuring out how to adapt to use this to the best of our ability. We're also a 10-person team. So being able to leverage Claude specifically is the application we're going to be talking about today. That's the one that we're all in on, has made our team wildly more productive. And one reason I think that we are pretty successful in the way that the brand being manual affects Claude is because it has two things that most brand guidelines don't have, and that's clarity and emotion. So a lot of you may have brand guidelines that say, this is my logo, this is my color palette, never use it under 2 inches wide or something like that. And we're lacking a lot of that emotion. So what I'm telling you is that you need to bring that emotion, that storytelling, the legends of what built this brand to Claude to be able to craft truly authentic, incredible content. And so we're going to walk through the steps, like what do we have in our brand being manual that allows Claude to operate so powerfully for us. So our brand being manual is going to inform who you are, who you're for, why they should care, and then of course what you should look and sound like, which is pretty much table stakes. And when you have these combination of elements, it really becomes the rocket fuel for AI. Our approach specifically has 3 phases to it: heart, positioning, and personality. So, heart is vision, purpose, and values. Positioning is who you're talking to and why they should care. And then again, personality, what you look and sound like. And I'm going to quickly show you a little bit of what this actually looks like in application. So what you're looking at right now are pages of Hoot's brand being manual. So when we say vision, we mean a world we may never live to see. It's that aspirational. So this is Hoot's vision, and this is Hoot's purpose, which answers the why. Why do we do what we do? And then this subcopy is creating a lot of context for Claude. I mean, for humans too. But what I'm doing here is I'm basically taking 15 years of existence, of this company's existence, and I'm taking that brain and I'm able to upload it to Claude now, which is just extremely powerful. We also do something called a business statement. That's like the nitty gritty elevator pitch. Like, we do what for who? What is this? And I want to make sure that my team is singing that same song. And then, of course, I can make sure that Claude sings the same song as well. Another thing that we're really big on is your values are the bedrock for your culture. They define the behaviors that are allowed, promoted in this company. So when I say, joy, candor, and collaboration, I need my team to know, what does that mean here? What do those words specifically mean here? And then how do we operationalize them so that we can put them to use? I am a big believer that your values should be proprietary, so they're not just the same as the people next door, and they should be transformative for employees. So something that you would never hire someone without trust, for example. So we want this to be a value that they might be transformed through, and they would look back and say, I learned that working for Hoot. This here is where we're transitioning into positioning. So we've identified who we are, what's our flag in the sand, what's our hot take. That's a lot of what heart is. And now we're transitioning into what sets us apart in the market, how do we communicate that, and then who we're for. So what you're looking at right here are the pages around what makes us different. We really believe in this perceptual map here, which is like identifying where you sit in the marketplace as compared to your competition. I highly recommend people do an exercise like that. That's really challenging for a lot of our clients, is to actually sit down and decide what makes them different and stick to it. Here you're going to see marketing collateral that we use, and this is in our brand being manual. And this is something that I put this slide in here because I wanted to say that your brand being manual does need to evolve. You need to iterate it. And I would say we're iterating about every 1 to 2 years. So people used to ask a lot, what does it mean to be women owned and led? Or why should I care as your client? I want my team and Claude to know what our belief is, what my belief specifically is around that, right? This is another point of our process that I would say we get a decent amount of pushback on, and this is your brand advocate. And I really believe that this is some of our secret sauce when it comes to Claude. So we're really big on identifying who that target is. That's the center of your bullseye. Now, it doesn't mean that we're saying no to people not named Elizabeth, right? Or who don't have a household income of 450. Elizabeth is just the center of my bullseye, and there's a lot of people around the outside. I always use this like, okay, Elizabeth is a female that we're targeting. We work with mostly men. So there's no sign outside, right? But this is really hard for people. I think it's because FOMO. They think, how could we possibly commit to one person? I don't want to outline their demographics. That feels icky or gross to me. What's interesting about demographics, that's actually about psychographics. So the demographics are only informing the psychographics. So if we have questions on that, I'd love to speak to those at the end. But when I know what keeps her up at night, what scares her, does she drive a Volvo or a Range Rover, right? That's not about the car, it's about the identity of the person. And when Claude knows who you're talking to, the product is, and this is the same for your team, but the product is just so much stronger. So I can't recommend this enough. If you are a small business or a business with a limited budget, this is an essential part of your process. This is something else that I'm pretty proud of that we developed. So this is a brand tension point. And this is towards the personality, the third phase of our process. We are helping you craft a brand tension point, which is two words that might not typically go together that inform how you look and sound. So for us, it's poise disruption. And I get this all the time about when people are talking about space. Specifically, this comes into play a lot if you're trying to craft an on brand office environment. People will say, okay, just give me my color palette. No, that's very 1998. What I would want you to say is, does this office evoke poise disruption? Does this office feel like us? Or I love when people ask me what to wear. And I would say, do not dress in your color palette. Again, this is not, TGIF, TGI Fridays. We want you to evoke your brand tension point, which for us is poise disruption. I know we had a couple other clients sign up for this. One of them was like renegade professor or unconventional structure. Those are examples of brand tension points. We want our voice and our visuals to combine to create that brand tension point. So I hope that you feel that from us. Hoot's voice, Hoot's visuals combine to create poise disruption. And with Claude, using Claude, our team has increased production by about 3x. And I would say this is pretty conservative. It's probably more than that. A lot of people ask, how much does Claude cost? We spend 180 a month to have 5 seats. I would easily pay 2K. Easily, I'd probably pay more. But that's just to give you an idea of, like, yes, it costs a little bit of money. It pales in comparison to how you will be able to leverage it. And if you're worried that this is about replacing human creativity, it's not. It's about amplifying it. This has allowed our team to focus on strategy, innovation, higher level thinking, and not to get bogged down staring at a blank page. So, as I mentioned, we're all in on Claude. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I'm not really going to belabor that. We're going to talk about it just a little bit. And I think once you see it, you might understand why. But for the first time ever, we're putting out consistent content. We're now posting weekly on LinkedIn, our blog, and our newsletter. And we're getting a lot of traction from it. And this is all because of being able to leverage Claude. And to be clear, all of the ideas do come, well, specifically for this marketing content that I'm talking about today, these ideas are coming from me. I'm not asking Claude what to write about, only to help me explain my ideas better, more fully, or faster. And I do think that's kind of a key component. I've worked with other clients they're frustrated that their team can't execute as well with, when I'm talking about thought leadership level content, I think that it's a tool better used for someone in a thought leadership role versus asking your team to be able to execute with that. There are plenty of other things that our teams can do using Claude to be more effective. And actually, we have a long list here of ways that we're using it that you might not have thought of. Number one, analyzing a P&L. And nobody here has that background, I can promise you. And this has been super helpful for us. Weirdly, it said too much owner distribution. I'm just kidding. Okay, another thing that we're having to do is analyze timesheets. So that's boring. And we're able to pull down PDFs of our timesheets, and Emma can type in, tell me what you're seeing in this timesheet versus this one, where we lost productivity. This was so cool. About 2 weeks ago, I stayed at a cabin locally and spent the entire week recording about 2 to 3 hours worth of videos to train our team on this brand being methodology. And then I had Claude write a 10-chapter client-facing book based on those transcriptions. It took about 20 minutes. Now, I did record the 2 to 3 hours of content, right? But the fact that it can just take that and grab it, and it's really good. We're recording sales calls and having Claude support on the proposal, that kind of like drudgery. Using Claude to respond to RFPs. We used to refuse to do RFPs because we have a 10-person team. We can't do the brain drain that is an RFP. Now I can dump in a 100-page RFP and say, you know our methodology, Claude. How would you respond to this RFP? Proofing documents, including images. This is even a recent upgrade that Claude has been able to manage, which is even being able to review images. Ideating on infographics, that's super challenging. It's a great brainstorming partner there. And then this was super cool. I think there's a big missed opportunity with using this for internal purposes. So we have these personality profiles that we have that are 30 pages per person. Being able to ask Claude to analyze the personality profile of our employees and then help us manage them through some kind of challenge has been extremely powerful for us as well. And if you're thinking like, okay, but is this good content? Because I hear that a lot. I hear this is garbage content that AI creates. And I think you're just not doing it right, is what I would say. Because for Parliament, which I know most of you signed up for this webinar through Parliament, we have a 38% average open rate, with industry average is 20. Our average click-through is 4.5. Industry average is 1.8. So this is really high quality content being created, like I said, through my guidance, which you're going to see when we actually open it up. But I think that these stats kind of speak for itself. We've seen a steady increase of traffic through Parliament and a steady increase of click-throughs. So this is just to show you this does work. This does work if you will take the time to identify the being. One slide here on why we like Claude versus ChatGPT. Feel free to use ChatGPT. It's not a good fit for us because of the privacy issues. But Zapier did do a comparison and found that Claude outperforms ChatGPT when it comes to creating human-like content, which is obviously what we're trying to do here. So the privacy thing is pretty huge. We have a lot of clients who will say, I don't want any of my stuff uploaded. I don't want my proprietary info being used to either train AI or, basically being like released on the web. So Claude, this is a big differentiator for Claude. Number one, it won't search the web as it is currently. Its knowledge base cuts off in April of 2024. So that's a big difference between it and ChatGPT. It also doesn't learn from or retain from conversations or uploaded files. That's huge for our clients. And it also has no access or memory of the material. So like the P&L, for example, my whole team that's on Claude is not accessing our P&L. It's in a private chat. They can't ask questions. It doesn't share that across even the same account. So that's a pretty big deal. If you're worried about, your proprietary info, your data being shared, I think Claude is the best fit. Another reason we love Claude is because it has this highly organized format of being able to create projects. Within projects, I get to have project knowledge, meaning that I can do a bunch of chats about Hoot's Marketing 2024, all referencing the same project knowledge. So you can imagine how critical this is for us too when we're dealing with a bunch of different clients. They're just all in different projects. It's never cross-referencing, pulling from one client to another. It's a fantastic way to stay organized. Now, I'm going to show you an example of what it looks like when we're using Claude the right way, is what I would say. And I think that brand voice is again like table stakes. That's one of those things that, like, of course AI should be able to operate in your voice. What I think is remarkable is that it can operate with the substance as well. That's where the real opportunity is the substance of what you do, right? And that requires you to identify the being. You can also save your voice. So this has been a very transformational thing for us with Claude because we have to operate in a bunch of different voices, but I can actually save out the voice that I want to write in the styles section of Claude. This right here is such a great example of why this process what might blow your mind. So this is the same prompt on Claude. I wanted to write a Parliament newsletter about this concept of language gives intention to intuition, which is a concept I read about in Unreasonable Hospitality. This is the copy that it produced when I gave it that prompt without a brand being manual being uploaded. So you can see it's pretty word salady. I'll give you just a moment to read this. Okay, and then the next one, same prompt, but with the brand being manual for who being uploaded. And I think it's just like, it's night and day. Not only is it using our voice, it knows it's talking to Elizabeth, it knows Elizabeth's pain points and who she is, and it's also bringing in the substance of the brand being method. So not only is it a lot easier to read and more enjoyable, but it's bringing the substance of like, why do I care about language giving intention to intuition? That's brand. So I feel like this probably is the only slide you needed to see in this entire presentation because it's that powerful. And like I was saying, I think a huge opportunity that people might be sleeping on right now when it comes to a brand being manual and leveraging Claude is the internal comms, right? It's like it's really hard to expect our HR folks to be able, they're not marketing people. And sometimes our marketing people don't have the time to support internal comms, but your employees are your first brand advocate. And when we don't consider that they also need to be spoken to, trained, addressed in an on-brand manner, we are missing a huge opportunity. And this example I think is so cool. So we launched core collaboration hours this year. And I was a little bit nervous to do that. It means our team has to be in office Monday through Thursday from 9 to 2. And I asked Claude to help me based on our brand being manual, help me write a landing page that I can share with my team about why we're doing this. And then help me generate an FAQ section that people might ask about core collaboration hours. And so this guy was not edited at all, I have to say. And it's just so on point, right? It's just like an incredible example. This entire landing page was built in 30 minutes. Emma loves when I just build rogue landing pages on our website. Okay, so as a recap, brand is the being, marketing is the doing, AI is the rocket fuel for your marketing. And this isn't about replacing human creativity, it's about amplifying it. Okay, so let's get into Claude.
Yeah, so Kristen is going to pull up our actual Claude. We're going to type in some prompts, show you how it works. You'll see the types of things we use it for, how we speak to it. Like Kristen mentioned, we're not really doing a formulated prompt. And then we want to show you the results we get. But while we're pulling that up, we would like to ask anyone on this call to think of a marketing challenge maybe you're experiencing yourself, that what you've learned so far, what you've already been thinking about, you might use in Claude at some point. And if you want to think about that question, drop it in the chat. We'd like to have a couple examples from people on the call that we can just pop right in here. We will be staying in Hoot's workspace, so it will totally be tied to Hoot, not your specific business, obviously, but just to show you how quickly it generates and what it comes up with in terms of quality. So please don't be shy. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat and we'll pull that up. But we'll start with one example we have on some Google Analytics that Kristen will show.
Yes, so we love this example because Google Analytics, this is the one of the tasks that I have at this company is to make sure that we're going through our analytics, that we're making changes, that we're updating the website. And when I download my Google Analytics reports, I am completely overwhelmed. I really don't know what I'm looking at. So what I'm able to do here is upload this to Claude, and you can see these are basic prompts. Like I'm not researching prompts. I'm just the more you can get in here and just go for it, the more success you will see. So, can you analyze this Google Analytics report for me? Give me a summary of your findings. I'd like to know how we stack up against other agencies in our industry nationwide. Here we go. And then I say, please act as a seasoned CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, and tell me how to improve based on these analytics. It's giving me that feedback. Then I'm saying, how would you double down on the brand being method? How do you see it gaining traction? And it's specifically digging into 156 views on this page, positioning is unique. It's already showing up as a key entry point for high intent traffic. And then it's giving me like basically marching orders
I
as
think
to
what
how to leverage. Oh, yeah, Emma, please.
I think what's cool too here is when we're doing something like analyzing Google Analytics, which isn't anyone's full-time responsibility on our small 10-person team. What's really cool is you can get these really robust, simplified reports, and we can ask it to expand on anything or to even simplify it. So what's like the most immediate thing I need to do, or where's our biggest weakness? And I think
Mm-hmm.
what you'll notice in Kristen's prompts is how casual it is. It's almost as if we're having a quick chat back and forth. Um, and we're
Right.
still generating those answers that,
It's not complicated.
yeah, allow us to take action.
And I think the level of analysis is just, pretty mind blowing. So, the key to this position of the brand being method is it's not just a service offering, but as a movement in the branding industry. It should be seen as the future of branding where culture and brand are inseparable. I mean, that's just straight out of Claude, right? So crazy. Okay, so let's go to, do we have any awesome questions,
We
Emma?
do. We have two questions from one from Steve, one from Nate. We'll start with Nate's question. So he has a prompt here, something he's asked he anticipates asking Claude, and it's we've identified recommitted to some employee initiatives related to wellness, engagement, and benefits. We want to improve retention and reduce turnover.
I'll go grab this from.
Yeah, I'm gonna just drop this in. Um, I just dropped it in. It's in the chat too, but slacked it to you as well, Kristen. But I'll just keep reading for the group here. Want to improve retention, reduce turnover. How can we make this a cohesive part of our culture instead of having to say, we have an upcoming event. We're hoping we'll bond employees together. So obviously, Nate, great question. Cool to see another internal culture example here. And then obviously this will be in Hoot's frame of mind, right? Because that's the project knowledge we have. So we'll kind of see what it comes
Love
up
this.
with, and it'll allow you to see how quickly it also generates.
Yeah, love this one. Typically, too, we do not use the parliament voice to speak. So this is a little bit nuanced here, but like, so Hoot has a bit of a voice, and parliament is seen as dialing up the controversy, I would say. So I'm going to write this in the parliament voice, but I would recommend, you would think about that, how you want to kind of dial up or down your voice depending on who the target is, right? Employees versus, and like we would typically be more casual with employees. But this will be a good example.
Mm.
So because Nate, your request was not really content driven, right? It's almost more like consulting support.
Mhm.
This is giving us more like, okay, how are we going to tackle this challenge in an on-brand way? Instead of positioning initiatives as retention tools, frame them through your brand purpose, moving culture forward through the power of brand. Each initiative should connect your larger vision, demonstrate how wellness benefits advance your cultural transformation goals, show clear alignment with documented brand values, and then value-based implementation. So yeah, I think you guys can see like having all of that uploaded. I think the best way to describe this is like it's the brain,
Mhm.
like uploading your brain. It can create just so much better work for you.
And I think, if this was Nate's organization, right, at the very top, it pulled, okay, how are we going to connect this back to the values that as an organization we've promoted again and again, right? So it's not just these wellness initiatives that are firing through. And then what I would do if I did have that prompt and it came up with that, you could even go as far and to say, give me some tactical or tangible examples of activities that connect to those values or,
Oh yeah,
align with this.
that's a great idea. If we wanted to like expand on this, I would say, can you help me generate maybe like workshop ideas that would be in alignment with this recommendation, with these recommendations.
Mhm.
One thing Em and I were joking about too, we often say like, this is so great. Thank you so much. Like talk to it like it is a real person. Oh, I love these ideas. Candor circles. Oh, joy is practice. These are so good.
So you can see like Nate in this example how it's giving you the, even ideas for how long the format culture. And then what we do is we're never just often taking it and running with it, right? We're then filtering it through our own understanding of what will work, what is the actual problem and how it connects. So I think that was a great prompt. We have a couple other questions, Kristen. Um,
Okay.
no prompts exactly, just a couple more specific Claude
Oh,
ones. So I'll
sure.
actually wait until I'll let you show a couple more of our examples first.
Totally. Yeah. And then we'd love to open it up for just general questions. This one, I was going to show how we promoted the webinar. So I actually took first I had Claude do a 12-month marketing plan for Hoot. So I literally went in and said like this is our revenue, this is what we want our revenue to be. Here are our current distribution channels. How do you think we should market this? Giving it target metrics is extremely helpful. So it go in there and put like what's your revenue target or like we're trying to get 20,000 people to show up to an event, something like that. Then I said, here's my marketing plan that you created. Here's the PDF for the webinar. Can you help us promote this in a 4-week campaign? And so this is like marching orders basically on how do we market this webinar? So we're going to do Parliament, we're going to use LinkedIn, we're going to use Instagram and Facebook. Then my next phase here is just to potentially say like, okay, help me write every single one of these, help me write the newsletters, help me write the LinkedIn, and you just take it piece by piece. Any questions about that? I'm happy, I do think the marketing plan is pretty striking.
Mhm.
I'm happy to share this. Like we do this with a lot with clients too. So right here, please act as a seasoned CMO of a service-based, culture-driven branding agency, Hoot Design Company. We grossed 1.5 in 24. We want to gross 1.7. This is how much we've sold. This is how much we want to make on brand bean versus employer brand projects. This is how we communicate. And it's literally like, a 12-month marketing strategy. And here are my KPIs, key performance indicators. Parliament is not working unless we're achieving that. How are we leveraging LinkedIn? How are we leveraging speaking? And then it said, this is what I would recommend for ad spend. Now I respond, I love your recommendation. I'm not willing to spend this much on ad spend. We plan to spend this money on speaking engagements. Revise. And then it's telling me how I can leverage speaking engagements specifically.
Think what's great about this too is if you didn't have, obviously, this is the industry, right, we sit in, so we're easily able to identify if it's working well or not. But I think if you don't have a marketing team or if you're looking to hire a marketing person, this is such a great resource for you if you've done that defined work of understanding who you are, what's the message, who's your target, because then it can spin out content in a marketing plan, right? That often feels like a huge, heavy lift in a simplified way to at least get you started and you know you're moving in the right direction. Because again, you're not just using Claude as a general AI tool, you're using it based on the project knowledge that you've uploaded.
Absolutely. And I think it's a great way to even check like a proposal that you might get. Like, let's say you get a marketing proposal from someone and you want to kind of like vet, I would absolutely upload the proposal and ask if they're missing anything. We upload a lot of our contracts and just say, is there anything unique that you see in this contract that we should be aware of? Um, I also like using it for stuff like this. So, could you help me create a visualization of how I should tackle this content marketing plan? This is not some crazy visual, but it can do, at least decent. It can get you started on
Mhm.
something like a visual.
I don't have any more prompt examples, but please feel free to dump those in, anyone, if you have what you'd like to see Claude generate. Kristen, there was a question that I answered, but think it could be good for the group is, can you just talk about, the question is, can the project knowledge in Claude be shared between people so that it continues to learn from the whole department? And across department, is everyone getting similar responses? And then it says, I know AI also learns from people and input affects output. Have you seen it evolve over time? And if so, does it mean that one or two employees could alter the responses negatively unintentionally?
Oh, that is such a good question. The first part of that question, yes. So I actually found this to be surprising to me. So we've been using Claude for about 18 months and all within one account or like one team account. And so I didn't really realize how good it was getting until I went into a client's brand new Claude account to try and help them upload their docs, etc. And when I started using it, I was like, okay, I can totally see that this is not nearly as powerful as ours. So I don't have an amazing answer for you, like a database. I can only give you my anecdotal advice that yes, it's absolutely learning from you. I do not think that it would be learning. I do not think that you could have employees negatively impact outputs unless they were uploading
Mhm.
project knowledge that was not helpful, or if they were responding to Claude and saying like, this voice isn't spicy enough, I want to, and you don't agree with that, so then it starts to get spicier and spicier. But I do not think that that would cause like so-called permanent damage. It would
Mhm.
be something that you could scale back. That's a great question though.
Mhm.
um
We've also seen Claude be really good at calling out where it's fabricated information. So I've done a couple prompts in here and it'll pull something up that say, I fabricated this section because you didn't have it in your project knowledge and I think it would enhance it. So it's a great way. So it's calling it out and not just plowing forward with something it's pulled from the web or what it thinks is best, which has been really helpful.
right,
Um,
like a case study that's fake, yeah.
mhm. One more question, Kristen, here is one of my issues is that I have not figured out how to have Claude keep our brand information and tone across different jobs. It tells me that it doesn't keep that info. Do you have any idea, Kristen, on how we could give some recommendations around that?
And I are you using projects?
This was a question from Steve. So, Steve, I'll let you unmute yourself there.
I think I am, but I'm I'm not sure. So if as long as I stay within that project, then it's going to keep everything that I've loaded up for it before.
Right,
So what if I go to a new project then? Do I have to reload?
right.
Okay.
Yeah, you do need to reload because it specifically will not transfer knowledge across other projects. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe that's where I'm having problems is that I need to tune it up and then just realize I need to dump this set in. Because if you
Mhm.
remember, we dumped like 30 of
All those
my
articles.
art papers and stuff in, I need to figure out a way to kind of make that more succinct.
Right.
Because
Like
it,
maybe
yeah.
put that in like one monster doc
Mm-hmm.
that you
Mm-hmm.
can upload quickly, or just stay in that project. Are you
Mm-hmm.
concerned about staying in that one project? Because you do have different chats.
Yeah. Maybe that's the way to do it. Okay. Because it sounds like what I really like is that once like you and Em and people are in it, it just begins to build on
Hmm.
what's in your head.
Hmm.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's so powerful,
Oh,
you
it's
know?
crazy.
Yeah. And that's why I'm trying to figure out how to do that. And so I don't want to burn everybody's time, but that may be something that the two of you can help me on just a little bit on the side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I do think Steve here is a really good example of like he is a professor who, well, he has a ton of writing samples that he wrote. So to be able to upload that, or like I know Walker Dybel signed up for this webinar, and like he has hours of YouTube, and that to be able to download that and transcribe those YouTube, like let's say Walker, video is a great example because it's like a little bit more abstract even than just Steve has tons and tons of actual PDF articles he can upload. But taking YouTube videos, transcribing them, and uploading the transcriptions, I mean, that is gold. It's like such gold, right? Or if you have a podcast, like Kelly, I see you on here, like taking your podcast, uploading those, imagine the data that you would be able to give Claude. It's just like me recording 3 hours of training for my team. I basically downloaded myself how my belief around brand in this process, and then Claude is only regurgitating. It's not, I don't think it's doing anything that I'm not capable of doing. I just don't have that time, right? So that's what just is completely transformational about this. So if you are someone who has created a lot of content already, you're sitting in an optimal position for this.
Hmm. Great questions. We have a couple more. So Kelly asked, can we duplicate a project? Do you know that, Kristen?
Not to my knowledge. I do not think so.
Okay. And then Stacy has a great question, but I'm gonna come back to it. Another one related to like the organization of it is, do we organize the projects by different clients, or would it be more specific like XX project for XX client? So we have, and I can kind of answer this one,
Yeah.
Emily. We have different projects for each of our clients. So, for example, Dropbox, we have one Dropbox project knowledge. Now they're doing a subsequent project, and we have a separate one for that. So it's a little bit of preference, but again,
Mm-hmm.
it's whatever is uploaded in that project knowledge is what we know we're referencing when we're talking about that. So most of our clients just have one hub and many
Yes.
chats, which you can see the chats listed
Are
on the screen
extensive.
below. Mhm.
Another thing to note, if you really are serious about leveraging this, I would highly recommend the team level account, which is, I believe, $180 a month because it's $30 per seat with a minimum of 5 seats. It will, if you're not investing that much, it will block you, which can be extremely frustrating if you are in the like flow state producing, and it will like shut down basically. It will be like you've used too much.
One more question. This is a good one, Kristen, and I let Stacy know we actually just talked about this and are in the research phase. So thinking back to the example you shared of recording those videos and then
Mhm.
generating the ideal client-facing book, Stacy asked, who owns the copyright to content Claude generates, such as the book you wrote based on the video content you uploaded?
So right now, Stacy, we own it. So the way that Claude operates now, you own all of your content you create. I do think this is evolving so fast and frequently that like that is something I would want to stay very up to date on. But yes, you own everything that you create within Claude.
And Stacy, feel free to unmute yourself and pop in if you have follow-ups about that. Um, One other question, Kristen, on the security of Claude, is, many people have been told multiple times, like, don't use AI with company information. From a security standpoint, is the data you put in going to a larger database that perhaps others could get access to down the road because it is in Claude? I know some organizations develop their own GPT to keep data secure.
So that is Claude's point of difference is that they are not doing that. Again, it's evolving so quickly. will that be true in a year? But that is actually Anthropic's promise. Anthropic started Claude. That is their promise, is that they are not doing that. That was like a huge part of their point of difference, right? Is that we are not learning from your data. We are not uploading your data to any hub, to a cloud. Um, and even this, I would even, Emma can tell you, it's even sometimes annoying. Like your chats are like locked down to just you until you make them public, even just on this team. And of course, only our team has access to this Claude. But those are great questions. I mean, this was a big challenge for us because we had tons of clients being like, you can't upload our stuff to AI, which we totally understand.
I think those were all the questions we've had so far in the chat. Feel free to keep them coming. Or feel free to unmute yourselves and ask any questions as well. I think, Kristen, I don't know if you had other examples to show or if I think we might have gone through the ones we
Covered
were.
everything.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think we really have. I'm trying to think of,
Great.
yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're happy to answer any more questions or, but yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything. And I think that the biggest, the thing I would want to leave people with is I think it is just so worth every moment to identify, your brand being, to get this stuff out and get it in writing. So that's huge too. I think a lot of times we see the owner, founder, or leader, perhaps of even a team may think that everyone understands the brand because it is intuitive to them. That's that whole language gives intention to intuition thing, right? So like it's intuitive to us. It's hard to imagine that someone doesn't get what's on brand. But there is so much power in doing the deep dive to identify this stuff and get it down in writing so that it is clear and emotional. And then you are truly off to the races, I think.
Because when I was going to mention something earlier, I think along those same lines, it's like, given how long you've worked in this field and different ideas that you've read about and thought about, you're kind of in a position where you don't really know what you know. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of stuff that comes almost instinctively, and it's hard for you to communicate it, explicitly. And by building this Kristen brain or Emma brain in Claude, then
Yeah.
then it's accessible to other people. Just like if I were to ask you a bunch of questions, you have really ready answers for them, but you don't know you need to tell me that till I ask you.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, I think that's a great point. Another thing that I would say has been really transformational for us is branding our process. So I think that's another way that we've provided a ton of clarity to Claude and to our clients is having this brand being methodology and then having it be brand heart, brand positioning, brand personality. It's like a way to wrap it up. Someone that I think does this exceptionally well is Brene Brown. So she takes a concept, but she's wrapping it up with a bow in a way that's super digestible. Cause like Steve here, who happens to be my dad, has said this to me before of like, you don't know what you know. And so, right, like I'm so intimate with brand all the time that it's hard to um break this down in a way that makes sense to other people who this isn't their life, they're doing a lot of other stuff. So having a packaged process that makes people feel safe,
Mm-hmm.
it has been really transformational for us. And then it's allowed Claude to just like, bam, as far as our content goes too.
Mm-hmm. And I think I can speak as an employee of Hoot who is not the owner, who is working under someone's vision. It's so beneficial to have that documented, to have that accessible to me in a clear way that I can then leverage when I'm actually producing on work on Hoot's behalf. So I do a lot of marketing slash sales work, and it's so helpful to have those resources documented. So it's not, what do I think the company's vision is? What do I think what is our point of difference? It doesn't change every day, right? So it is just such a helpful tool to have that foundation, which we know will evolve as our brand changes and grows, but to be able to produce within that and leverage Claude to do that has just sped up our process so much and allowed us to Oftentimes we'd have webinar stuck on our to-do list for so long because
Mhm.
maybe our copywriter was booked to write the emails and promote it. Well, now we have the tools to really 3x getting this out the door. So the idea we had 3 weeks ago can come to life really quickly. Kristen, Emily had a great question in the chat. She said, the marketing strategy was cool to see. Besides providing the main ideas, about how much editing do you think you did for the content Claude generated?
Oh, that's a great question, Emily. I mean, Emma and I talked a lot about when we were presenting this webinar, did we want to be really transparent? Because a lot of you came through the Parliament funnel.
Mhm.
I do pour a lot of my heart and soul into Parliament because I think I really put myself out there from a vulnerability standpoint. Like I have a lot of hot takes, which I do love to share. But I would say with Parliament, I am only editing, I'm spending 1 to 2 hours a week doing the blog, the newsletter, and the LinkedIn from soup to nuts. So it's like, it's pretty insane. I hope
Mhm.
that doesn't demotivate you from reading Parliament because I'm sure you want to hear my next hot take. I do think it's very helpful to generate, like, I've heard a lot of people say, like, they don't love the content. If you're not the one at the beginning of the like embryo of that content, I think it is going to fall a little bit flat. You really want to leverage your true expertise there.
Mhm.
But then the ability to just create so quickly. I'm also a done is better than perfect person for sure. So I'm able to let go of a lot of perfection. I don't noodle over stuff a lot. So yeah, I would say, Emily, like, I would say I'm editing 20, if I had to take a stab, I would say like 25%, something
Mhm.
like that. But the
And
the germ of the idea must come from, in my opinion, it's much better coming from a thought leader.
Mhm. And again, Emily, in terms of like the marketing and sales side of things that I sit on is I use it a ton to say, okay, we got these stats about a project we did. How can you help me tell this story in a way that speaks to the Elizabeths that she will care about? So what's the ROI she cares about with this campaign that had this many likes? Or what's this versus the industry standard? And it spits out quickly engaging statistics for me to then generate. Case studies are something that we do a ton as an agency to promote our work. Those are really time intensive and really time consuming. Now what we're doing is leveraging Claude to help get, it's basically like the fear of the blank page is going away. So we're able to start with something and then tweak that. And that process is what's really helping us 3x our production, right? It's more time finessing and editing versus starting from scratch, which can often be both an emotional challenge and a time consuming struggle. So hopefully that helped answer that question.
And I
Um,
see Matt said, do you brainstorm content ideas? I really don't, Matt. Okay, so we do use Claude to brainstorm content marketing ideas in general. But as far as Parliament, this is what my recommendation is. If it's coming from a person directly, like versus the brand, like Parliament is literally signed like Kristen. I really want those ideas to start from me. Because I want people to feel like that sounds like her. I know her. That is something she says. Versus like the branded content, which honestly Hoot's not producing very much of right now. I think is a little bit okay. It's better fit to brainstorm with Claude. But
And
yeah.
Matt, feel free to come off mute if you have follow-ups on that. It's good to see you here.
I'd be so curious to know if people have brand advocates because that's something, like I said, we get a lot of pushback on, and I really think it's like a secret sauce that is not complicated. So does anyone want to share, like, do you have a brand advocate? Do you think that would be way too tough to ever align on who it is?
Well, okay, I'll jump in again because nobody else, I didn't want to hog the time, but when we did our work with you, we created a brand advocate, and my worry was that we might be like limiting our audience too much.
Yeah.
And so that's something I haven't been able to figure out exactly.
Okay, so that is everybody feels that way.
Mhm.
But does it make sense to you, Dad, that when you identify that, you're actually identifying their psychographics?
Mm-hmm.
We're leveraging storytelling to make it sticky for your team.
Mm-hmm.
So, like the fact that I don't remember the name of your guy, but
I
like,
don't know,
oh,
Roger
shame
or
on you.
something.
Okay. So like for us, Elizabeth, it's Elizabeth and where she lives and the fact that she has like kids and a husband and everything, that's just to make her feel real. So that
Mm-hmm.
when my team is talking about should we be on Instagram, should we be doing Parliament? Does she read her email? Is she going to conferences? What pubs are she reading? Is she reading? Because that's where we should be showing up. Elizabeth is just a storytelling mechanism to make that person sticky.
Okay, that was a good response because that helps me elaborate a little bit. So then, let's say the day that we sat down with the three of us, okay, and we were talking in general terms. Since that time, we've picked up some other work that's sort of different than,
Mm-hmm.
so we might answer those that's it. Okay, so we picked up things that are a little bit more bizarre. Can we go back and tune up our,
Okay,
make Raj?
such a good question. If you want more of that work, I think you should.
Okay,
If it's an outlier and you don't want more of that work, let it be an outlier.
okay,
So like a
okay.
great example of this is like Betsy is the owner founder led person that we're going for and we work with so many people outside of that. You know, we just signed a contract with the Missouri Army National Guard. It is worth revisiting these people. I would say, you know, Emma can speak to like we have leveled up. Our person used to be called I can't remember Andrea Fumero.
Andrea.
And like as the business levels up, often so does the brand advocate. You know, Andrea Fumero was leading a smaller company.
Hmm.
Now we're too, you know, we're too expensive for Andrea Fumero. So as the brand levels up, so does the brand advocate.
Hmm.
Perfect. That's exactly what I was thinking.
But
And
without a target, you will be trying to speak to everybody and you'll end up speaking to nobody.
mhm. And we're
Yep.
undergoing that challenge in a very clear distinction of people, we're working with owners, founders, and then people in the more corporate employer brand space. Those are we have a different, totally different, almost brand manual of sorts, a brand advocate around the employer brand target that we're trying to sell to.
And
Because
it's
if
challenging.
it's super challenging. And so, when
Yeah.
you go to our website, it's just so helpful to know that distinction is necessary so that we're not causing confusion to people who try and come to Hoot to work with us for owner founder brands or things like that.
Well, and I actually love talking about that, Emma, because it's what we tell people not to do. So
Hmm.
we actually have two separate brand advocates. Elizabeth and then Michael is the employer brand person. And I can just tell you that our job is harder because Parliament is written for Elizabeth.
Hmm.
It's like laser focused on Elizabeth. So Michael, we're not bringing in as many Michaels. Like I can promise you we're not. I don't think there are Michaels on this call
Mm-mm.
because all of our effort is for Elizabeth. And so I'm, you know, even though I do as we say, not as we do, because like we want more of those people, but it makes the effort twice as hard.
Hmm.
So if you start to bring in, you know, your one-off stat, it's okay. You just got to decide, are we going to put marketing effort behind that? Or are we going to say that was a one-off? Let them come as they obviously, we're not going to turn away someone who's a good fit. But is it who we want more of?
Hmm.
Um, Oh, yeah. Thank you, Emily, for that feedback. I think that's, you know, I'm glad to hear you say that because we get a lot of pushback on this of people just being like, this is weird. I don't like it. It's ridiculous for me to say I'm for men, I'm for women, I'm for a millennial or a boomer, whatever. And I think that, like, if you just trust us, this will have a positive effect. And like if we were to show you, I'm trying to think if I even can pull up Emma, like our stories on these people are crazy.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We go very, very deep. It's like which we are going to host another webinar in the future just about the brand advocate because it is such a powerful tool. and you want to feel that you know them. The reason that we're storytelling about them is because the entire team should feel like they know that Elizabeth drives this versus this because it's about her identity. It's not about her, it's not like a flippant detail.
Mhm. And I think that goes back to at the very beginning, our belief around powerful brand is right. We're trying to draw people to action through clarity and emotion. And that emotion becomes so much more evident when we're humanizing our target.
And I think, marketing is about speaking to their pain. And we can't really speak to their pain if we don't know them really intimately. So it's kind of like the same idea of a niche, except it's not like an industry niche. It's like a psychographic niche kind of. So, but yeah, I love talking about that because I do think we get a lot of pushback.
And to tie it back to Claude, that's why I think Claude is so successful for us, is because it's able to latch onto something to help humanize when it's writing.
Exactly. Like that line in the copy that it wrote about language gives intention to intuition. It was like it like knew Elizabeth so well. It was like your brand in your gut. You can't scale gut. I mean, so well said, Claude.
Our highest paid employee for sure. Yes. Deserves it. Yeah. Okay. Well, any other questions, feel free to just come in and unmute. We'll stick around for a few more minutes if that's okay, but just a couple housekeeping things as we finish this up. Thank you so much for attending today. It was exciting to see some familiar names pop up and some familiar faces. After this, we will be sending a quick survey. So we'd appreciate your time to just fill that out. Should just take a few minutes. And then we'll also be including a link to our next webinar, which is called Unlocking Culture. And this is where we plan to talk about how do we build the scaffolding for on-brand behavior. So how are we thinking about brand a little bit more from that internal side? So definitely something worth attending if you can, but both of those details will be coming out via email.
Thanks a lot. I
Thank
think it's really helpful. It's really practical. I love it. Yeah. And I think you and but sorry here, but you and Emma did a nice job of bouncing back and forth.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, it was a good team. Good team.
Thank you.
Yes.
And yeah, and Kristen's brilliance just shows through.
Who raised her?
Amazing parents, I must admit. I want to know more.
Well, this will all be in the recording, which you'll also
Oh,
be getting.
whoops.
So you can replay that as many times as you need. Yes. Yes.
Whoops. Okay. Oh, well, it was good. It was great. And you covered it in an hour. I mean, awesome. Yeah, I got a text from Mark too, said the same.
Okay, great. Well,
Bye,
thank
guys.
Thank you so much.
you. Bye.